Let's go now to the United Kingdom, and I'm joined by a correspondent in London, Olly Barrat. Good morning, Olly. The news that Prince Charles has tested positive for COVID-19, is he aware of how he picked it up?
No, he's not, and of course Prince Charles's role in public sees him meeting often in a single day dozens of people and shaking hands with many of them too. I mean, I think it's fair to say that at the occasion of his last public engagement on March the 12th, the public guidance on things like shaking hands had started to bed in, so there are images of him at that last public engagement on March the 12th going to people to shake their hands and then realising he shouldn't and stopping himself. And that was beginning to become part of the public consciousness. But in the days before that, certainly he'd been at a number of events with a number of people. So Clarence House, his office, saying that they can't identify exactly where he picked it up. He is 71 years old. His wife, Camilla, is slightly older than him as well. So they're both in that over 70s category where the risks are heightened when you have COVID-19. But Clarence House saying that his symptoms are mild and that he remains otherwise in good health. There is some controversy here in the UK about the fact that he had a coronavirus COVID-19 test at all, because if you have mild symptoms, the National Health Service advice at the moment is simply to stay home and self-isolate, and you are unlikely to be tested. The NHS in Scotland, where he was tested, says it followed procedure in terms of getting him a test in the first place, but some are pointing out that perhaps that is a little bit of a discrepancy here. Others are saying, look, this guy is the heir to the British throne. It's not a huge surprise that a test found its way to him.
How is the British public coping with the lockdown? We have seen some amusing posts. One of a little girl crying her heart out because she has to eat mummy's food and can't get takeaways. Another of Boris Johnson in a rather interesting outfit going for a jog. But how has the British public adapted? Because there was quite a lot of resistance to staying at home initially, wasn't there?
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason that the government did this in phases. It wanted to get people used to what is a pretty radical change in the way that people are living their lives. Now, there are still some discrepancies, some controversies being ironed out, being attempting to be clarified by the government. For example, that idea of exercising. Some people have said that they've seen joggers in parks getting really too close to people, perhaps coughing, spluttering as they move through open spaces. The government is saying, look, certainly the British advice is you should exercise once a day. You should go out and walk your dog, go for a jog, but you've got to be careful to stay apart from other people. We're also seeing ongoing arguments about the construction industry. Should people still be going to work on construction sites, particularly here in central London? The government is saying, yes, they should, but only if their employers can guarantee that they can practice social distancing measures while they are at work. Well, for many employers, that's very difficult indeed. So the advice for the vast majority of the population is to stay at home, and the data appears to show that the vast majority of the population is staying at home, but it's taking a huge amount of adjustment. And bear in mind, we're only a few days into what is a lockdown that's going to last at least 3 weeks, and that's been one of the key points from these scientists throughout all of this here in the UK. They've said, look, you can't bring lockdown in too early because it could have to go on for weeks and weeks, and people will get fatigued and people will stop observing it. But for now, the majority of Britons are doing their bit, I think.
Olly, we're about 15 hours away from our lockdown coming into force, and our government has taken a very drastic and strong position. There will be no walking, there will be no dog walking, no running, because I think that they feel that it's important to clamp down very hard. As someone who's been living the lockdown and self-isolation, what are your top tips for South African as we go into our own lockdown?
Well, I have some level of sympathy because, for me, getting out of the house once a day with the dog has been crucial to stopping me, feeling like I'm beginning to lose my sanity, stuck in these four walls all day. With the children, we've been making sure that in the morning they get up and they do some kind of exercise. They watch a YouTube physical education video, take part in something like that to get the day started. We make sure they get out of their pyjamas early on. We make sure we put real clothes on early in the day rather than staying in pyjamas for the duration. Having some kind of routine, we have found, has been particularly helpful. And then we've also been making sure that we're catching up with my parents, who are also in isolation, over Skype or Zoom or Portal or FaceTime or whatever it is they're trying to get their heads around at that particular moment in time. Keeping that contact with friends and family, even though you can't see them in person, for us has been very helpful indeed.
Olly Barrat in the United Kingdom under lockdown. Thank you very much. Some really great tips there.